Well, several families are looking for answers about service dogs they were supposed to get from a South Georgia nonprofit.
It just felt like my world had been ripped apart.
Raina Fisher was a client of the Barefoot Canine Project. Cecil Allen Brown founded the nonprofit in Homerville a few years back. Now, the Georgia Secretary of State's office says people's contracts with the nonprofit required that the families raise thousands of dollars in donations, and then the nonprofit would give them a service dog trained specifically for their needs. Now, several years later, some families say they haven't gotten their dogs. 3 years ago, Fisher was waiting to receive her service dog to help her with PTSD. She says staff at the nonprofit told her she couldn't get the dog. The nonprofit had assigned her, so she spoke with a woman who worked for Brown and the nonprofit.
I was begging and pleading with her to give me my dog. She, no, he's going to kill me. He's going to call the cops on me. I had a little pistol, and I'm not proud of it. But my emotional state was that far gone, and I told her, give me the dog or listen to me die.
Now, Fisher was able to pick up her dog, Aslan, and she got him trained through a different organization. One woman who is deaf tells us she gave her own dog to the nonprofit to get trained, and to this day, that dog is still missing. Now, coming up on WALB News 10 at 6, WALB Investigates looks at her search for justice.
In an exclusive WALB Investigate story, a South Georgia man is accused of defrauding families of kids and adults with disabilities. The man founded a nonprofit in Homerville that purported to provide and train service dogs. WALB News 10's Emily Forrester spoke with several families who say they're still looking for their dogs and thousands of dollars in donations that were given to that nonprofit.
They said that she wouldn't live to see her first birthday.
Cynthia Walker's mom knew she was a fighter the day she was born. She has CHARGE syndrome, which includes heart defects and developmental delays. But after an open heart surgery before her third birthday, things took a turn for the better.
She started learning to walk, eat on her own.
Now, 27-year-old Cynthia, who is deaf, lives life to the fullest in South Carolina.
She would talk about dogs all day long. That's her favorite thing, but Chipella is the biggest.
A few years ago, a friend gave Cynthia Chipella, a German Shepherd.
Chipella.
They became inseparable, seemingly meant to be.
The way Chipella would cuddle to Cynthia, I don't think I've ever seen a connection like them two.
Buellman got in contact with Cecil Allen Brown on Facebook. Brown founded a nonprofit in Homerville, Georgia called Barefoot Canine Project. Buellman says Brown told her if she could raise enough money, the nonprofit would train Chipella as a service dog. Her mom hoped this would give Cynthia more independence and keep her safe.
She was completely 100% supposed to be Cynthia's ears when Cynthia has no clue what's going on around her.
But that never happened.
She can't find her. She's sad. See her sad?
I came across an ad for the Barefoot Canine Project on Craigslist.
Sheila Weeks and her son Sam live in North Alabama. She says Brown offered them the same hope that the nonprofit would find and train a service dog for Sam, who has Asperger's syndrome.
He was diagnosed with the Asperger's, mood disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, anxiety, depression.
Weeks says a service dog would help head off Sam's outbursts.
The dog would be able to pick up on his emotions and his anxiety levels and, kind of be able to give us a warning of what was about to take place.
Both mothers, excited at the opportunity for better lives for their children, signed contracts with the nonprofit 4 years ago. Cynthia sent Chipella to Homerville to be trained.
That was the day that we found out that he had been approved.
The nonprofit was supposed to find a dog to train for Sam.
The dogs themselves would cost us $30,000.
Half would come from a memorial fund. The families say Brown told them the fund was in memory of his 3-year-old daughter who died. They had to raise the other half, $15,000, with fundraisers and a crowdfunding webpage.
It's It's been a while since, I've seen my kids smile about anything.
So they did fundraisers, and they put their own money in as well.
Alan had actually talked me into almost $2,000 being placed into my son's account, promising matching funds. And this was money out of my son's disability check. So he pretty much cleaned us out.
When did things start going awry?
We noticed that the people who started questioning him would get kicked out of the program.
Hi. Hi. Are you Alan Brown?
Now that was WLB News 10's Emily Forrester reporting. Neither family has gotten their dog. Chipella is still missing. Now tomorrow night on WLB News 10 at 6, we try to get some answers from Brown himself. Plus we look into the red flags that led to an investigation by the Georgia Secretary of
Well, this week, WALB is investigating a former South Georgia nonprofit accused of fraud. The state says 3 people incorporated the Barefoot Canine Project in Homerville in 2016. Cecil Allen Brown, Colleen Miller, and Miller's son. Now, the Secretary of State's office says the nonprofit purported to find and train service dogs for children and adults with disabilities and veterans. But former clients have since accused the Barefoot Canine Project of taking their money and never giving them a dog, along with mistreating animals. Now, here's what one former client says she heard from Colleen Miller.
None of the money was used for anything that it was supposed to be used for. Some of the dogs had been sold. Some of the dogs were being bred and puppies being sold. None of the dogs had received any vet care.
Coming up tonight on WALB News 10 at 6, we look deeper into an investigation conducted by the Secretary of State's office, and we'll break down where the thousands of dollars in donations to the nonprofit were actually spent and whether any dogs have been seen since.
We are following a WLB investigation this week. Several families of children and adults with disabilities say a Homerville man took thousands of dollars in donations from them. They say that man said that he would use that money to find and train service dogs for them. WLB News 10's Emily Forrester found out the man and the nonprofit he founded are now the subject of fraud accusations.
Was it a scam from the beginning, or, was it something that he honestly and truly set up to help kids and it just backfired and went the wrong way?
Sheila Weeks says she wishes she could just talk to Cecil Allen Brown, who founded the Barefoot Canine Project in Homerville. Weeks' son Sam and another client, Cynthia Walker, raised thousands of dollars for the nonprofit in 2016 and 2017, all in exchange for a service dog.
She shows everybody, complete strangers, pictures of Chipella.
Cynthia sent her own dog, Chipella, to the project's farm to be trained. She hasn't seen Chipella since 2017. Sam never got a dog from the nonprofit. To this day, neither have seen a dime of the thousands given to the nonprofit on their behalf.
It takes a very special person, to do what he's done and, take advantage of kids. Why our children? Why our special needs children?
We noticed that the people who started questioning him would get kicked out of the program.
After complaints to the state, the Georgia Secretary of State's office looked into the nonprofit and its founder, Cecil Allen Brown. That investigation found enough proof for a cease and desist order in 2018. The document says 6 families either never received their dog from Brown or got one that was not properly trained. Both these families and the document mention one client who did get their dog.
He didn't have any basic training. He just yanked this child out of their wheelchair.
The cease and desist says the project got $60,000 in donations between June of 2016 and February of 2017. The document says after one client passed away, the nonprofit continued soliciting charitable contributions. Out of that $60,000, less than $1,000 or virtually no expenses were spent on dog training or care, and a significant portion of the money was used to pay the personal expenses of Brown and perhaps his girlfriend Colleen Miller, including restaurant and grocery charges and streaming television. Brown no longer owns the Shiloh Highway property in Homerville where he ran the nonprofit. I found his new house in Waycross and tried to get answers.
Are you Alan Brown? Yeah. I'm Emily. I'm a reporter with WALB, a news station in Albany. I'm working on a story about a couple of families have contacted us talking about the Barefoot Canine Project.
I have no comment.
The cease and desist says the Barefoot Canine Project engaged in fraudulent activity, misrepresenting that the money raised would be used for charity. The Georgia Secretary of State's office dissolved the Barefoot Canine Project in 2017.
Have you had a chance to just ask him the question, where is our money? Where is our dog?
I've sent him multiple messages. Look, I don't even care about the money. We just want Chipella. We will leave you alone. We will stay out of your life forever. Just give us our dog back.
In early 2017, several families reported what happened to law enforcement where they live. Most got pointed toward the Clinch County Sheriff's Office. Deputies there say they turned the case over to the FBI. An FBI spokesperson tells us he can't confirm or deny any investigation involving Brown. No criminal charges have been filed. Sam still hasn't been able to get a service dog. Someone has offered to help Cynthia get one once the opportunity comes up, but Chipella is still missing. Both their mothers say they do not plan to stop fighting for answers and justice.
She tells them the bad man took Chipella.
How does it make you feel when you hear her say that?
It's hard. And I have to, I fear the worst with what has happened to Chipella, but I have to try to I don't want to say it to her, but it breaks my heart.